Okay, so I have made a decision that I am going to move back my review of this match week to tomorrow. And instead of actually doing two separate videos, I'm just going to do one. And the reason why I decided to do this is that I think it's more efficient to just do one separate video for the review of this match week, despite the fact that this is only the second week in MLS where we actually have a Monday game. Yes, we still have one more game before this match week is over. And the other reason why I have to do this is because since there's so many teams that got eliminated this week, we have 3 teams this week got eliminated. Could potentially be 4, depending on what happens tomorrow with the Dynamo are on the brinks of elimination if they do not beat the Sounders. This is why I have to push it back, because there's just so many kind of moving forward series that I got to do, and it's better for me to do these moving forward series right now and get it out of the way so that I don't have to really kind of worry in doing the midweek part of this week. But talk about the team that got eliminated, and one of the 3 teams that got eliminated this week. Toronto is one of those teams that have been officially eliminated from the playoffs, and because of that, they become the 4th defending champions to be eliminated from MLS playoff contention. The most recent time a defending champ got eliminated from the playoffs was actually a couple of years ago. It was actually in 2016 when the Timbers won MLS Cup a year ago, and they got eliminated in the playoffs the very next year. And then the other 2 times that happened, 2006 Portland Timbers and 2000 DC United. And I know that from what I've been hearing with this elimination of TFC, I've been hearing a lot of people have been talking about how this team just completely choked this year and that they just completely collapsed this year. And I also have heard TFC fans that are just freaking out right now of how bad things have gone. First of all, I feel like for those that are freaking out of what has gone on so far this season for TFC, let me just say that I hope this video will kind of calm you down. And the fact that for those of you that are kind of overreacting and kind of thinking that this team just completely choked and collapsed of what happened this year, I hope by the end of this video you can have kind of a different opinion about this, because I generally don't think this team collapsed this year and really just choked after what happened last year when they won MLS Cup and pretty much were in the conversation of not just the best MLS team, but also the best MLS team of all time. And of course, these kind of elements that I'm going to be talking about, what went wrong, what went right, and moving forward, will pretty much just kind of solid evidence point of why I think TFC did not really choke and why I think this elimination actually could help them in the future. But first, we got to talk about where they are right now. So far they have 9 wins, 6 losses, and 16 losses, or 6 draws and 16 losses. They only have 33 points so far this season, so they're not even got half of the amount of points that they got last season in that historic 70-point season. The amount of goals that they have scored so far this season is at 55. The goals that they concede is 60, and their goal differential right now is at -5. Top goal scorer for them this season, unsurprisingly, Sebastian Javinko with 12 goals. That's actually not a minus, by the way. That's just a kind of slash right there. Osorio with 10 goals in this season as the second top goal scorer of this team. Victor Vasquez with 8, Josie Altidore with 7, and Nick Hagelin with 3. In terms of top assist leader, Sebastian Javinko with actually not 12 assists, but 14. And I wish I have a pen right now. Oh well, just pretend this is 14 and not really 1. I accidentally wrote 12 assists there. I actually wrote the same number of goals he scored to the same number of assists he has, but he actually has 14 assists this season, which it's definitely not bad of a season that Javinko is on. I mean, I think Javinko this season definitely has not been as good as he were last season, and certainly in the beginning of this season and in that CCL run that they have. But still, it's not too shabby to get 12 goals and 14 assists, to get kind of a double-double so far this season. And then, of course, Victor Vasquez with 9 assists, Jonathan Osorio with 6, Gregory Vandervelde with 4, and Michael Bradley with 4 assists. What went wrong for TFC this season? And this is where I'm going to talk about why they didn't really kind of choke. The first reason is that they lost a lot of key players this season. I mean, there hasn't been a single game this season that TFC can actually start their strongest 11 without having one of their key players either getting injured or coming into the lineup not 100% healthy. I mean, it is just incredible how much of an injury crisis that they have kind of had to deal with throughout the season. You know, guys like Javinko, Victor Vasquez, Josie Altidore spend time on the IR, and it's not just their key kind of attacker that has been spending a lot of time on the IR. Their whole back line for majority part of this season was just completely wiped out. Like, they were pretty much promoting kind of TFC 2 player at some point of this season to just try to replace some of these guys, and it's pretty clear that it did not work whatsoever. So certainly, I know usually I don't want to make the excuse of a team having a bad season because of injury, but when you look at how many injuries that TFC have been suffering and how much big blow after big blow after big blow of injuries that TFC have suffered, no team in the world can easily recover that. I mean, you have to be one of the best team in the world to be able to deal with some of your most important player to go down, and expect the reserve to be a guy that would be a good replacement to him. And I think even as much as this team have a pretty good depth piece as last year, you know, some of those depth pieces also got injured this year. So they were getting to a point where they were relying on third string guys, and those third string guys are pretty much those TFC 2 player that I talked about. And keep in mind, TFC also finished near the bottom of the USL standing. So it's not like their farm team actually is good whatsoever. Their farm team is actually really, really bad. And then, of course, the other thing that went wrong this season, deep CCL run and being in the playoffs twice in the last 2 years has really took a toll in this team. And, you know, whenever you've gone into the playoff twice and you've gone in all the way to MLS Cup final, and then after that you have to do a quick turnaround in the offseason, have a very short offseason, go into CCL, and go really deep into CCL, yeah, that of course is going to eventually take a toll in this team. And I just think the injuries that I talk about with their key players, I think that is an example of how it just took a toll to this team. I mean, guys are just getting injured time and time again because they're just physically exhausted. Like, they have not really had a proper off season for the last 3 years because they've been pretty good in these last 3 years and have made it so deep into the playoffs that, you know, it's just going to be a 3-month recovery before they have to have a new season. And last season it was even worse. They didn't even have a 3-month recovery. I think they only had 2 months to recover in the off season. And in MLS, most teams, they get at least 5 months to recover for this season. And if you're in the playoffs, you might get 4 months, but just 2 months recovering. And the fact that they had to take on CCL, which was definitely very brutal for them. Yeah, obviously it's gonna take a lot of toll on this team. And again, that is one of the reasons why there was just so many guys that were injured on this team. And then, of course, the third thing that went wrong in this team is they do not have a midfield and defense. And, again, part of that has to do with the fact that they had a lot of injury in the back line, and how for a part of this season they had their entire back line just wiped out because of injury. But also the fact that the midfield was not good whatsoever. I'm talking to you, Michael Bradley, who decided to implement his U.S. men's national team form into TFC form now, and he is just absolutely garbage right now. And you wonder, will they do something about Michael Bradley? I mean, he has just had probably the worst season that he has ever since he arrived from TFC a couple of years ago. And do you decide to put him on the bench and maybe find a replacement? And keep in mind, Bradley is not that young whatsoever. He's now about 31 or 32 and probably 33 coming into next season. So he is really aging badly. And since he's a midfielder, and since midfielder usually their lifespan is not very long on the pitch, yeah, Bradley is slowly in this really steep kind of decline that he's gonna be suffering for these next couple of years. So if you're TFC, you gotta think that maybe you might have to potentially pull the plug on him, maybe start to put him on the bench and come in as a super sub, and maybe find a replacement for him. And it's not easy to find a replacement of Michael Bradley. I mean, if you ignore what happened this season with him at TFC, he has been amazing with TFC in that midfield for the last couple of seasons. But in terms of what went right this season, well, at least they won some silverware. I mean, they did win the Canadian Championship. And yeah, okay, I know that some people say, well, the Canadian Championship is nothing. There's really only like 3 teams that can potentially win that competition. Yeah, it's still another silverware, okay? And they were able to beat Vancouver to win that Canadian Championship. And of how bad this season has gone for TFC, it's still not easy to beat Vancouver, who, they also are not having a good season themselves, but it's at least they're able to beat them, and at least they're able to win this Canadian Championship, which means that it will guarantee themselves of another CCL appearance next season. And that is huge for TFC, because I'm pretty sure when they do have that CCL run next season, they would definitely looking for some redemption, and certainly looking to try to finish the job that was left undone last season when they got knocked out, or when they lost that 2-leg final to Chivas. And also they beat Tigres and Club America on verge to the CCL final. And I think that is something that we still need to kind of appreciate of what TFC has gone through in CCL. And keep in mind, their road to CCL is probably the hardest road to get to the final of any other MLS team that got to the final of this competition. Okay, yes, I know some people say, well, Montreal, they also kind of had a tough road too, and the fact that they kind of surprised a lot of people, well, yeah, in some way they did kind of surprise a lot of people. But when you look at what TFC had to go through in CCL, I mean, they start off pretty easily by playing Colorado in CCL, but then they had to play Tigres, who at that time was the best team in Mexico. And yet somehow, in some way, they were able to beat Tigres in both legs. And yes, I know they did lose their second leg, which was at Tigres' home ground, 3-2. But still, they were able to win the 2-leg on away goal. And it doesn't matter if you lose the game there. At the end of the day, if you were able to win those 2-leg and win on aggregate score, that is all that's matter. And keep in mind, I think another thing that people also kind of underestimate about their run is what they did to Club America. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Club America in both of the leg. And I don't think there is a lot of team in the world that can do what TFC just did to Club America in those 2-leg in CCL. And we're also talking about I think the most successful team in terms of CCL and the team that has the most CCL title out of any other team in the CONCACAF region. I mean, that is also just another crazy achievement that they did. And I think the only reason why a lot of people don't really kind of recognize this achievement as much as we probably should is because they lost that final to Chivas. If they won that final to Chivas, I think a lot of people would say that this season, no matter what happens, is going to be a success. But yeah, moving forward on this team, and like I said a couple of seconds ago about how I think they're definitely going to make another CCL run, and how I just think that with them eliminated from the playoffs now, this is going to be good for them because now they're going to have more rest coming into that CCL run. I mean, they're still not going to get as much rest as you would really hope for them to get when they make that CCL run, but I think it would, if they would have gone to the playoffs this season, and let's say if they do go deep again and then fall short in MLS Cup, then it could be really damaging in terms of their CCL run that they're going to make next season, because that's another couple months that is added into an already exhausted TFC team, and by the time CCL come, they just do not have any kind of energy left in the tank to potentially make another run and trying to get the job done. And also, I think they're going to make another playoff run. I really think that, you know, this team is just way too talented to miss the playoffs for the second year in a row. When you look at this squad and you look at the core that this TFC team has, it's still there. I mean, most of the core players that were part of that CCL team and also part of that cup winning team is still here. And I don't think any of those guys are going to leave anytime soon. So I just think that this team is still just very talented, and that I think the reason why this team had a horrible season is because of the toll that they have been taken in these last couple of years, and the fact that they have suffered probably the worst injury crisis that they have ever suffered in franchise history. And I expect them to get back to the playoffs and really challenge Atlanta next season for MLS Cup. And then the other thing that I think they might need to do in the offseason is that they probably need some more pieces in terms of the midfield and defense, and they need some depth pieces on this team. I think it's pretty clear that after what happened this season, they clearly lack the depth that they thought that they had back in last season. And I think maybe if they do add in some more depth player and maybe make some trade with other team in MLS and add them as kind of like bench kind of player and players that can replace some of their key players that they might miss if they get injured, then I think that would be something that TFC would definitely looking for this offseason. And keep in mind, I also said that I think maybe in the offseason they might be searching for a replacement of Michael Brantley, because I really think Brantley is just going to get worse and worse since he is already on the wrong side of 30. And when you're in that wrong side of 30, especially you're a defensive midfielder, your ability is going to just fall off the cliff as the year goes on. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, and I hope I have changed your opinions of what you have seen with this TFC season. And, you know, don't be afraid to disagree with me on the fact that you know, what I said about this episode, and that, you know, you might think that these are just all excuses that I am putting for TFC and kind of disguising them as a team that is still considered one of the best team in MLS. You know, don't be afraid. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to kind of explain to you, or, you know, in some case maybe argue with you of why exactly your claim is right and why exactly your claim is wrong. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.